back on the Ringer NFL show in a game that I think most people had higher expectations for. Eagles-Packers going into the weekend, it looked like, hey, maybe this could be the marquee matchup. Didn't really end up that way. Eagles 22, Packers 10. Packers couldn't get anything going offensively, suffer a flurry of injuries at wide receiver. The Eagles game, in my opinion, it looked like a lot of Eagles games this season. But before I get to what I thought about it, Diante, what's your big take, from this game? Eagles advance. Do you feel better about them, worse about them, the same about them as they prepare for the divisional round?
I'd say I feel worse about them. And probably worse about them for predictable reasons. I think the defense is pretty clearly Super Bowl good. I think that we saw that today. They can play tight coverage against an aggressive style of offense. Even if that offense is missing their best man-to-man beater, I think that you could see some of the issues that Jordan Love was having in the pocket with guys not separating when he's used to being able to release the ball. And the fact that they've been able to get so much more out of this edge room than I ever would have imagined. Seeing Nolan Smith be a productive player, honestly, seeing Milton Williams be as productive as he was this year compared to what he looked like last season, when I wasn't sure that he was a player that the Eagles thought that he might be when they decided to keep him and play him more often. I think that they have done so much to generate good play out of their front seven and getting these young guys to play sticky coverage. Darius Slay still playing sticky coverage out on the perimeter. That's a unit that can go and play anybody, and you should feel confident about. I was in the first half, maybe through like the first 2.5 quarters, kind of feeling like Jalen Hurts was playing more conservatively than just being like an abject disaster. But on the whole of the game, going back and looking at some of the throws he's turning down, looking at some of the pocket management, it's hard to feel like any of that's going to be fixed if they're behind schedule against the Vikings team, against the Lions in the NFC Championship, if that's who they matched up against. I don't know if this team's ceiling is as high now as I would like to think it is in terms of best case scenarios, because I haven't seen it up against the best competition in a little while now. I'm not sure if Jalen Hurts is that player this year.
I'm less concerned, honestly, and it's not because Jalen Hurts was good. Like, I agree with everything Diante just said, and like the ceiling for this passing game is very concerning. But when I look through the NFC, I just don't know which team has a defense that's capable of making them play with their right hand tied behind their back and making them not just into a drop back passing game. I think it's like deeper than that. I think you have to be able to rush with 4 and get pressure on Jalen Hurts. And if you can't and they have to blitz, then that just makes everything else easier for Jalen Hurts because they have 2 mismatches on the outside, and then Dallas Goedert could just stiff arm his way through a secondary if he wants to a touchdown. So like in the NFC, like if the Lions were at full strength and they had their defensive line and Aiden Hutchinson was there, I would think that's a terrible matchup for the Eagles, but that's not the case. And I don't know which other pass rush in this conference has the ability to win that battle 4-on-5 against the best offensive line in the NFL. There are not a lot of pass rushes around the NFL, but all of them seem to be on the other side of the bracket right now.
Yeah, it's like this game felt like many of their games this season. Like I said, to what you guys were saying, their defense was fantastic. They limit explosive plays. They're stopping the run for the most part. Josh Jacobs had a fantastic run there in the second half, but for the most part, they're stopping the run. Their offensive line is very good. Saquon Barkley's having some eye-popping runs. And then when they have to drop back and pass the football, this was a 14th percentile game for a quarterback this season in dropback success rate. They were successful on 33% of their dropbacks, produced a positive play. This was, even for the Eagles, for Jalen Hurts this year, their worst game based on dropback success rate. And so all season long, I've had this thing where I'm like, the Eagles ceiling is going to be determined by whether their passing game can get it together in the playoffs. And I say it, and I say it, and I say it. And now they're in the divisional round, to Ruiz's point, and it's like you're 2 wins away from the Super Bowl. I think at some point, just kind of their talent becomes overwhelming offensively. Like there's going to be some type of answer today. It wasn't a lot, but like you guys said, their offensive line can control the game. Saquon Barkley can have a big run. Devontae Smith can make a play. AJ Brown didn't do it today, but he can. Dallas Goedert. And it's like, it's a weird type of offense to look at and analyze because that's just what it is. Like one of their dudes is going to do something in this game that's going to be good enough because they also might have the best defense in the NFL. Now, can that continue week after week? I mean, Ruiz, when you were saying it, if the Vikings go to Philadelphia next, like can Flores do that? I mean, how would you view a Flores coach D? I feel like he's got the mind to cook up something where this might not be good enough if the Eagles don't play better than they did today.
I don't even think you have to imagine it. Didn't they played, was it last year or the year before where they played in like the early season? I think it was a Thursday night football game, and Flores didn't have the horses he has now on the defensive side. And I think he gave Jalen Hurts a lot of problems. That was kind of at the beginning of the cover zero problem that Philadelphia had to work its way through last season. So yeah, I think that's totally possible. It's still a situation where you have to drum up pressure. And I think you're always going to leave yourself vulnerable to that, because it's not just you beating Jalen Hurts and that offense from last year. It's you beating Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore. And I think they have had better answers against the blitz. So I don't know if that strategy would be as effective as it's been in past years. I just honestly think you have to win with 4. I don't know. I don't understand how you do it otherwise. Because you're not going to knock them behind the chains. You're just not going to do it. The offensive line is too good. And Saquon Barkley, if the offensive line lets defensive linemen through, Saquon Barkley's going to make them miss anyway.
Yeah, if you look at Jalen Hurts' splits, man versus zone, they are pretty glaring, where he has struggled much more against zone man. You can throw it up to one of those guys and they make a play. So it'll be interesting to see what their path looks like. He was coming back. He hadn't played in 3 weeks here. But again, I would be more likely to say, hey, it was a little rust and he's coming back if we hadn't seen this story over and over again. And it's just an uninspired passing game that doesn't warrant a lot of confidence. At the same time, the other parts of this team are so reliable, the defense, the coverage, the secondary, the offensive line, the run game, that you wonder in a weird season in the NFC if it might be good enough to come out of the conference. So, I mean,
I feel like my main takeaway from this weekend as a whole is just like how we call it a quarterback league, but I feel like the evidence is overwhelming in the fact that it's an offensive line league. And if you have a dominant offensive line, the margin for error, even at the most important position in the league, even if you're paying that guy $50 million and he plays like this, it doesn't matter against a quality opponent in Green Bay. And we've seen that throughout the playoffs. Like the Bills won that game because of their offensive line and their run game. The Ravens dominated the way they did against the Steelers because of their run game. I don't know if I'm going to give their offensive line as much credit because Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are very good, but their offensive line is way nastier than it was a year ago. And I think that's helping them out. The Bucs are where they were because of their offensive line. The Commanders aren't where they were because of their offensive line, but they're where they are because of their ability to kind of control the situation and mitigate opposing pass rushes. And then Jaden Daniels' role in that by being a great runner. So it's an offensive line league, and it's been an offensive line playoffs. And I think for the Eagles, that offensive line might be good enough to drag them to the Super Bowl.
It is their superstar. There's no doubt about it.